Thank you very much for joining this webinar today on Thursday, the 26th of March. We are delighted to introduce the presenter, Hugo Minney. He is the chair of the APM Benefits and Values Pacific Interest Group. For the last 7 years, Hugo pursued project management as a chief executive in the NHS, and he is currently integrating benefits management into Britain's largest civil nuclear establishment, Sellafields, based in Cumbria.
Benefits and value is why we do stuff. We will come on to the why in a moment, but can I first ask a little bit about you? Can you put in on which industries or sectors you've worked in already? And we'll see a word cloud developing. This is quite a good pattern because it shows very much the areas that coming up there, big, it's education now, steady focus on benefits. This is a particularly good definition, a measurable improvement resulting from an outcome perceived as an advantage by one or more stakeholders, which contributes to one or more organization objectives. It's got everything in there. If you think, why aren't I talking about the definition in the body of knowledge? That's because I wrote the one in the body of knowledge, so I'll talk about what other people have said. It is measurable. It might be measurable in observation or terms, either it's there or it's not, or it might be measurable in absolute granularity. It's measurable. It is causally related to what you're doing. Benefits can happen by themselves, and it's unfair to sneakily sneak in there and say, I'm going to call that benefit the benefit of my project, even though it doesn't have any relationship. And of course, benefits are absolutely tied into stakeholders. So benefits management is the identification, definition, planning, tracking, and realization of benefits. It starts, we'll come on to when it starts. It starts early on. Benefits realization, I'm afraid, has generally got benefits management a bad name, because benefits realization is often, we've decided to do something big. Let's assemble a team of benefits managers to justify our decision after the event. So that's how I make the distinction between the two. Benefits realization management is just a way of mixing the two up, but the benefits realization management I'd put into the category of identification, definition, planning, tracking, and realization of benefits. So I can't hear your answers, but the bottom one, program management, is the PlayStation controller, where we say, how do we run a program? We run a program by coming up with an idea, by producing a nice solid square, defining the project that comes out of that idea, going through the build, in this case, going through the options, choosing the right options. We then deliver in cycles, in stages, or in tranches, which is why it's a circle, because it goes round and round each time it comes round to the project board, and then we hand over to the business. We do a similar thing with benefit management. We use the Xbox controller for this. Why are we in this benefit? One driving benefit, the big idea, where we take the idea, we define what the problem is, we define whether we can, we then take it through and say, what are our options for solving? Which money are we prepared to invest? And build ourselves a business case, which is the A list of benefits. Do the benefits provide sufficient justification for going ahead with the investment, benefitization of your objectives? So I've talked a lot about optimizing. Optimizing is measured in a term called value. So as we look at this slide, this illustrates one of the ways of measuring value, the most common in Europe, which is benefits divided by costs give us a ratio. So to increase value on the item across with an equal sign and a down arrow, what we can see is if we keep benefits the same and reduce cost, we increase value. If we increase benefits and keep costs the same, we increase value. If we increase costs but we increase benefits by more than we've increased costs, then we increase value. If we decrease benefits but we decrease costs by more than we decrease benefits, then we increase value. And of course, everybody traditionally thinks about increasing benefits and decreasing costs. All of the other ones also improve value. So over to you. There are ways that organizations measure project success and talk about project success, and there are bringing return on investment. What does your organization, or what's your opinion on bringing in the project on time, bringing in the project on budget, whether the project meets the specifications or whether it delivers benefits, are what your organization says is a success for your organization, and whether it actually brings real benefits back to your organization. What we see is we're seeing the average. So if I was to hover over any of these, then you would see the scatter. But as they build, it just shows us the average. That's a nice place to be settling. But there's quite a scatter. What we typically see is more in the top right and bottom left, and a few scattered in the other ones as well. That's quite an interesting scatter, and it gives us an example of just how enthusiastic, how many people are on this call, and the kind of excellent experience that's coming into giving us feedback. So the other point to make about benefits is that benefits do have to outweigh the cost. Absolutely they do. But it is crucial that not only do they outweigh the cost, but they also outweigh the risk. Management of risk helps us reduce the risk. So if you've got benefits that perhaps give you a 10% improvement over your cost, then have a look at the risk. I hope you're working in an extremely low risk environment. And if you're working in a more high risk environment or a risk to benefits environment, then you probably need to outweigh it by many times. Here's a quick example of a way to approach benefits. It's very similar. This is Phil Driver's PRUB method of identifying, understanding your stakeholders and identifying, planning what benefits you've got. This is exactly the same as YA, monitoring as you deliver and evaluating once you've handed over to the business. So it's very similar, or exactly the same as the YAXB that we've just seen. Most people traditionally associate benefits with benefits mapping. I've put a little highlight at the end of that saying it's the kindergarten stage. You need it because you need that foundation. But what we're going to do in this presentation, in this webinar, is talk to you a little bit beyond there. So here's a simple benefits map. We've got objectives on the right-hand side. We've worked out in order to achieve those objectives, we need these benefits in place. We've worked out in order to get these benefits that we need certain outcomes. The business needs to look like this, and therefore we're doing stuff on the left-hand side. What has happened in the past is we start off with initiatives, we work out what we get because of the initiatives, we then assign some benefits, and we then say, isn't this wonderful? We really do need on this to start off on the right-hand side. Here's a benefits map in one of the tools available, which shows the same thing, but it just shows you it in the context of saying we can have quite complex benefits maps, and we can still find our way around them with the tools available. When we start to move on, then we're starting to say, can we understand for each individual benefit a little bit more information about them? So we're starting to define it with relation to the stakeholders, whether it's a benefit or a disbenefit to an individual stakeholder. We're identifying who's responsible, who's going to monitor it, who's going to be consulted about it. I'm introducing this term common currencies, and the common currencies are the things that we report in. So that enables us to take 2 or 3 benefits and add them together. And by adding them together, that means that the board, when looking across a whole portfolio of benefits, isn't looking at 1,000 separate dials showing how the benefits are progressing. They're able to look at a number of summed up benefits because they're in common currencies. So as an example, in Sellafield, the common currencies are pounds that Sellafield spends, contribution to the local economy in West Cumbria pounds, reputation, and advancing the mission. In a university environment, it might well be that you use as a common currency your research ranking or your teaching ranking as a university, and you're showing how your individual benefits contribute to that, along with some of the other ones. You might have future profitability, which might be made up of sub-benefits of customer retention and customer spend. And within the benefits profile, we're going to talk about how much and when. So looking at the profile, we start off with a bit of an outline and then start filling it in. Something short and memorable, a bit of an explanation that might be 200 or 300 words long, a description of who's involved, and then obviously we can read it from the map. Useful to do it in the profile as well and say, did we get them right on the map, which are our dependencies both ways? And then we're looking at the risk. What is our certainty of achievement? So now we go on to the next stage, and the next stage is not just saying how much and when in a kind of general term, and I'll come on to why that can lead you down a rabbit hole, but now we're saying how much and when on a month-by-month or quarter-by-quarter basis, where we're starting to say, how are we doing? If we've got a forecast, as you can see in the top diagram, if we've got a forecast there, which has, this is what we've planned, and this is, and the red box in there is the actual, this is what our actual is, and you can see how far the actual is away from the plan. The actual then tells us what the forecast will be. Because we can see the forecast isn't on target, we can use benefits management to make decisions. And that's really what benefits management is about. It's a tool to help you make decisions. I'm going to spend a couple of slides on lead and proxy measures because they are crucial, because benefits are mostly delivered after a project is handed over, and yet you need to be able to make decisions during project delivery in order to change the project. So you need some way of telling how well your benefits are going to do, even though they're not actually doing anything. Decisions, as I say, to optimize value. Let's start off with a piece of research on 11,958 projects. This is Dr. Alex Budzier in the Oxford Said Business School. It's a bit of a depressing statistic. I'll leave you a little bit depressed, but actually at the moment, as we do projects, we tend to have a vanishingly small success rate. So this is where the benefits management framework starts to help you do work right across the organization. And this is why we map that concept of common currencies to be able to contribute, show the contribution to strategic objectives and add them together. We're looking at the overall objectives, which we've replicated down using our BMOST, our vision, mission, objectives, strategy and tactics. We're showing how multiple projects actually interact with each other. So let's do organization. Here you will see the scatter as you put extra points on. Is you're delivered the whole project and we've got no chances changing the project. The M way of using it, which is to refer to projects, programs, and portfolios. So a lead indicator is that we'll be looking at type or higher value price per activity. We'll be looking at new markets, new sources, and those are, again, the second dimension, portfolio management or a benefit. We've got our initiatives up. So you can say, I'm postponing these ones to realization. And if we go to taking snapshots of that scenario planner, we can then say, for trying to reduce operation expenditure and trying to increase customers, we can say column 2 is a focus on operation expenditure reduction. We can see we've hit all our targets for operation expenditure reduction in the middle column, but we haven't done all that well in our customer retention. With column 3, we've got a different pattern of projects, of initiatives that we've selected. Benefits and value is why we do stuff.